Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you ever felt this strange disconnect between the shiny apps on a young person's phone and the actual behaviors they're exhibiting, well, you are absolutely in the right place. Today, we're diving deep below the surface of the digital iceberg, right? We're going to uncover what is truly happening on the platforms our youth are using every single day and completely break down the mechanics operating behind those screens. Because, on the surface, the digital world looks, well, perfectly fine. It's infinite scrolling feeds, harmless little animations, simple ways to stay connected. But today, we're exploring the systemic failures lurking just out of sight. We tend to think of these platforms as neutral tools, but as we'll see from our sources today, the architecture of these spaces is entirely intentional, and it has a massive, profound impact on parental safety and youth development. So here's our roadmap for this explainer. 1. Exploiting impulsivity. 2. The moderation crisis. 3. Disguised dangers. 4. Algorithmic pipelines. And finally, 5. Reclaiming control. All right, let's jump straight into Section 1, Features Exploiting Youth Impulsivity, Weaponizing Natural Development. So think about this. Apps take completely normal, healthy youth traits, being curious, adventurous, naturally impulsive, and they pair them with features like disappearing messages. Growing up is literally supposed to be a phase where you fumble, bumble, and make mistakes. We've all been there, right? That's how we learn. But these platforms take that natural impulsivity and digitize it. They turn fleeting, silly moments into immortalized data points. They essentially weaponize the very things we love most about young, developing minds. And the really crucial takeaway here is that features like social streaks, they're not just fun little add-ons. They are deliberately designed to prey on a young person's intense need for digital credibility and social connection. It's absolutely no accident. The creators of these platforms know exactly how the teenage brain works. They completely understand that a teen will deeply, deeply worry about their social standing taking a hit if a digital streak is broken. So it basically keeps them tethered to the app through manufactured anxiety. Which naturally raises a massive question. Experts note that the local AI technology to actually prevent the sending of harmful or inappropriate media, it has existed for years. Years. Yet these platforms largely refuse to implement it as a default safety measure. They literally have the capability right now to flag concerning behavior locally, right on the device before anything ever gets sent. But time and time again, they persistently choose engagement over proactive protection. All right, Section 3. Disguised dangers in cartoons, luring viewers with the familiar. So here's what's happening. Bad actors are using a deeply deceptive pipeline. They utilize familiar, beloved video game characters to lure kids in, completely lulling them into a false sense of security. And then, bam, out of nowhere, they expose them to highly disturbing scenarios, repetitive, unsanitary themes, and really shocking visual gags. On top of that, they constantly use loud, aggressive calls to action to trap the viewer's attention and basically game the algorithm. 18 million views. Just let that sink in for a second. That is the staggering reach of just one of these videos, featuring inappropriate imagery disguised as a harmless animation. You look at the thumbnail and it looks like a simple block-building game cartoon, but the content inside is completely warped. And with 18 million views, we have to acknowledge that this material is reaching an utterly massive audience of unsupervised children. As investigators point out, the sheer volume of these videos proves this isn't just some isolated accident. No, it's a highly lucrative business model. The creators know exactly what they are doing. They're producing this highly engaging, bizarre content specifically because it keeps young eyes glued to the platform. It generates massive ad revenue, but completely at the expense of our youth's digital well-being. Moving on to Section 4. Algorithms pushing exploitative media, Instagram's careless machine. This is where the system fundamentally breaks down. An investigator found that a single click on a mildly concerning video can trigger an absolute avalanche of harmful media. The algorithm, which is purely seeking engagement, pushes users to external, encrypted apps where they're exposed to severe, highly illegal exploitation material. It's essentially a direct pipeline from a mainstream social feed straight into absolute darkness. Actually, a former executive perfectly described the algorithm this way. They said it only cares about engagement. That's it. It doesn't understand context, it doesn't have a moral compass, and it is completely oblivious to the devastating real-world harm it's facilitating. The system sees a click, assumes interest, and relentlessly feeds that interest, no matter how dangerous the material becomes. So we're left with this glaring contradiction between corporate PR statements and the actual reality of the platforms. While executives go on record claiming they prioritize safety and remove millions of accounts, the reality on the ground is that ads pushing exploitative material easily bypass automated reviews. And it gets worse. While these companies implement stricter safeguards in the US and Europe, they drastically reduce safety investments in the global south. This creates incredibly dangerous blind spots that have recently prompted international governments to step in and demand answers. Finally, Section 5, Reclaiming Control and Unplugging, Breaking the Surface. Look, when you first get a kid to put their phone away, the complaints of boredom can feel absolutely intense. But as we've learned throughout this explainer, that mindless scrolling is really just the brain begging for an easy artificial fix. We've become so conditioned to avoid even a single moment of quiet reflection, instantly reaching for our screens the literal second our dopamine levels take a dip. But here's the good news. Pushing through that initial uncomfortable boredom, it opens up an entire world of productivity and peace. People report going on walks, playing board games with family, and feeling a renewed sense of youthful curiosity. By removing that constant, buzzing distraction, you allow yourself and the kids in your life to actually feel present, deeply focused, and truly connected to the real, physical world around you again. And of course, when devices are used, we absolutely must demand true parental controls, not just optical illusions. Parental suggestions are just easily bypassed toggles. What we actually need are mandatory, unbypassable safety guardrails baked right into the very operating systems of these devices. Think about Apple's newer features that actively blur inappropriate imagery and require a parent's actual screen time passcode to bypass. That's the standard we need. So we've seen the depths of these careless machines. We've seen the pipelines, the hidden trauma, and the deeply deceptive tactics. Now the real question is, how will you take action today to protect the focus, the mental clarity, and the safety of the youth in your life? Because it all starts with setting real boundaries. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer.